Good morning. Thank you so much. I'm here to speak to you this morning on creating a first-class visitor experience. But I want to change just one word before we get started, and I want to change visitor to guest. Because a guest is someone that we welcome in, we invite into our church, and hopefully we've prepared an environment and an experience that makes them want to come back again and again, right? So we're going to say guest. And I can't talk about first-class guest experiences without speaking about my friend John here. Now, I met John in Orlando, Florida at Disney World in January of 2019. And I remember that date specifically because it was exactly 1 month before we launched our discipleship program at Faith Apostolic Church that we call Faith 101. And so I was feverishly taking notes every time John said something. Now, you might be wondering who John is, aside from looking like Carl from the movie Up, which he plays to perfection at Disney. Let me tell you, he's wearing the little grape soda pin on his lapel. He walks around with a bunch of balloons, but he is not a cast member. John is actually very important to the Disney organization. If you work at Disney, if you're a cast member of any type, if you're a food service vendor, if you're operating a ride, if you're an executive in the C-suite at the VP level, you do not start day one of your job without going through John. He is over all the people that make Disney what it is. And I got to spend about an hour with John. And he is just a really high up there kind of guy. Just to give you a little backstory about John, the first time that I saw John, he was shaking hands with the entourage in the van in front of ours. We had driven up backstage at Disney, which is someplace that very few people get to go. It was really cool that we were backstage at Disney, and there was another bus in front of us, and John is out there greeting the person who's walking off that bus, and it was Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant walks off the bus, his entourage, I'm pressed up against the glass, like, I can't believe this is happening. And then John kind of shakes hands, exchanges pleasantries, and then motions over his shoulder that he's going to come hang out with us. He blew off Kobe Bryant to come and hang out with me. I felt really special. That wasn't the only time that John was going to make me feel special that day because he taught me so many things. So we're walking backstage with John, and he's pointing out this thing and that feature, and he's talking the entire time. And then we reach this gate where we're about to leave from backstage at Disney to go to what they call on stage. And so if you're in the park at Disney World and you're a cast member, you're officially on stage. You're in character. Doesn't matter that you're having a bad day, grandma just died, whatever happens. If you're out there and you're a cast member, you are on stage and in character. And he says, this is a really important moment. He got really serious. And he said, we ask all of our cast members, everybody's got problems, everybody's got situations they're dealing with. We ask them to leave them here at this gate. There's a mirror right there with the words above the mirror that says, are you show ready? And before a cast member walks from backstage to on stage, they check themselves in the mirror, make sure there's no bats in the cave, make sure they're in character, and they walk out ready to greet guests and make magical experiences. And so I'm sitting here taking notes. Everything that John says is gold. And we walk out into onstage area. We're in the park. He's wearing a headset talking to us. We have headphones on so we can hear him. And John is talking away, and I'm taking my notes. And I barely even noticed it, but right mid-sentence, just like I'm talking to you, John was talking to us, and without missing a beat, he reaches down and he scoops up something that was by his foot on the ground. I have no clue what it was. I didn't even notice that it was there. Except that when John raised it back up here, I could tell that there was something running between his fingers. And whatever John had picked up was really gross. And John takes that really gross thing, and he doesn't call for a concierge. He doesn't have like somebody waiting in the wings, no armor bearer to come and wipe his hands. He just takes it and shoves it in his pocket and does one of these numbers and keeps on talking. Now, every pastor in the room, I can see you nodding because you know exactly what John was doing. In fact, I always say, if I want to know if somebody is a really great pastor, I'm going to ask them to empty their pockets at the end of service. Because great pastors don't have empty pockets. They're going to empty their pocket, and there's going to be fuzz, there's going to be a piece of paper, maybe some toenail clippings. There's going to be a wet Kleenex. It's not his. He doesn't know whose it is or why it's wet, but it's in his pocket. Right? Great experiences. It matters the place that you're in. And so John taught me a few things. You're wondering why we're halfway through and I haven't told you any tips, hints, or tricks about guest experiences or first-class guest experiences, but really I have. There were 3 things that John taught me that day, and everything that he said to me, he said, Wes, I always think about this quote from Walt Disney every day when I show up for work, and it's this: if 1% notice it, it's worth doing. 1%. If you go into the tiki room at Disney World, most people will never notice it. These animatronic birds that were built back in the 60s, they blink, they sing, they move their heads. But if you pay really close attention, and only 1% will, those birds are breathing. Walt wouldn't let the attraction open until the Disney Imagineers made those birds breathe and look as real as possible. If 1% of people notice it, it's worth the effort. And so there were 3 things that John told me. I'm going to go through these really quickly. 3 things, and the intersection of these 3 things is where first-class guest experiences live. If you get these 3 things right, it doesn't matter how much your budget is, what your facilities are like. If you do these 3 things, I promise you, you'll be able to deliver on a first-class guest experience. So the first one is this: process. Process. If a guest shows up at your church this Sunday, do you have a process for that guest? Now, I don't mean a plan, because a process is different than a plan. You might say, well, I would greet them and I would make them feel welcome. But process is more than a plan. It's a promise. You're communicating to your guests every service, we have a path for you. So if you come to Faith Apostolic Church this Sunday, I'm going to make the same announcement that I make every single week. People who attend our church faithfully could make this announcement. I see the youth sometimes mouthing along with me. They know exactly what I'm going to say. I'm going to say, everybody, would you put your hands together and welcome all of our guests this morning? God bless you. Thank you for choosing to be at Faith Apostolic and making us a part of your Sunday morning worship experience. If this is your first time or one of your first times here, we would love to greet you and answer any questions that you might have about faith. And so right after service, if you go out these back doors, turn to the left, you're going to see a wall that says Next Steps. And that's because we believe that everyone has a next step to take. So if this is your first Sunday or your 1,000th Sunday, God has you on a path, and He wants you to take your next step. So I'll be out there waiting to answer your questions, and if nothing else, I want to give you a gift, a small token of my appreciation for you being here today. Now listen, people don't come to the Next Steps area because they care about the gift or because I'm such a great announcer. They come because they're looking for a connection, and they want to see what's going to happen next. And what happens next is this: I invite them to lunch with the pastors the first Sunday of every month. We're going to sit down, have a meal together, and just get to know each other. No pressure. From there, I'm going to invite them to finish what we call Faith 101, 3 more weeks of a discipleship program that's designed to help them discover their wiring and their purpose and connect them with an opportunity to serve at Faith. Process is more than a plan, it's a promise. The next thing that matters is place, and I've already told you the story about John reaching down and picking up that goop. Place really matters, and this is what I want you to take away about place. Everything speaks. And so if everything speaks, what do your facilities say? You don't have to have a multi-million-dollar facility with a waterfall out front. You don't have to have the very best lights, music, cameras, action. You don't have to have any of that. But do you walk by the piece of paper on the ground, or do you pick it up and put it in your pocket? Because everything speaks. Process, place. But none of it matters if you don't have this last one, and it's people. Process, place, and having the right people in the right place with the right processes is the absolute key to first-class guest experiences. I wish I had them with me today. This is Gary and Julia Ranking. They are some of the sweetest people you will ever meet on the planet, and they are my right hand at Faith Apostolic Church when it comes to connecting with guests. As great as I am at making that Next Steps announcement, that is not what gets people to come to the Next Steps area. What gets people to come to Next Steps is Gary and Julia. They walk through the sanctuary before and after every service, and they greet anybody that they don't know, and they know everyone. They connect with them in a way that sometimes I can't, and they shepherd them to the Next Steps area so I can walk them to their next step. Process, place, and people. If you get those 3 things right, I promise you first-class guest experiences every time, and if you take nothing else away, take this: make sure you wipe down the counters in your bathroom every time. God bless you, and thanks for attending today.